Hello, my name is Mitch Henley. I am a musician. At least that's what I've been telling myself for the past 30 years. And still, even I haven't heard of myself. So how do I change that? Well, one of the first steps I'm taking is this podcast, which is, I don't know that it has any reason to exist other than to caress my fragile psyche and ego. But I don't know, maybe something educational will come out of this whole experience, or maybe it'll just be a huge, colossal waste of time, pretty much like the last 30 years of my music career. So, here's my goal. My goal is to be as true to myself as an artist as possible, because, I mean, that's the fucking point. And sadly, that is not what my career has shown. I mean, I've been a major... Ooh, cats. I got cats. Ooh. So anyway, where was I? So yeah, so here's what happened. I got to about 2008, and I put together the last lineup of my traditional rock combo, and it was the best lineup I'd ever had. We sounded great. My songs were awesome, if I do say so myself. But we were just a bunch of old guys out starting at square one, and I just didn't have the money to go any further with it. I couldn't pay those guys and also pay my rent, so something had to give. I basically got super drunk at our last show, destroyed about $400 worth of equipment, fired the guitarist, and pretty much made an ass out of myself. If Paul Westerberg would have done it, it would have been, universally adored. But that's kind of the story of my life, is I'm who Paul Westerberg becomes if he doesn't get a major record deal. And, I mean, that's not tooting my own horn. I mean, I can match him song for song, truth be told. And so anyway, that's beside the point, because I really was completely dissatisfied with the quote-unquote traditional rock template. I mean, it's boring. It's been done, every riff that you hear nowadays is so derivative of a previous riff that you're thinking of that song. And once you reach that point, something has to change. Otherwise, we're just birds vomiting in each other's mouths. And I mean, I don't know about you, but that's not something I really want to make a habit of. So here's the thing. Back when my career was taking off, I had moved to Chicago to attend DePaul University, but really, all I wanted to do was get there so that I could book my band. And that's a very expensive endeavor for me, because I took out some college loans for this, so there's some expense, and I don't think my fellow bandmates ever appreciated that, if I may say so out loud. It's like they always looked at me as, he's just the singer and the drummer, and he doesn't carry as much weight as the rest of the guys in the band who actually have to, play a melodic instrument, and I don't know. So, I basically went broke hiring people so that I could present my music. And when you're concentrating solely on wrangling the first 3 or 4 people who are quote-unquote available and willing to work for that much money, you're not getting great bands. I mean, you're getting okay bands, but you're not getting great bands. And that's the problem that I have. It's like, don't go out unless you think you're in a great band. Sadly, the landscape is full of people who never ask themselves that question. They just, they're like, Alright, now we can go play. Who cares if we suck? Wait, do we suck? We suck. So anyway, back in 86, there was a Crossroads where I was getting into like house music and industrial. But being a drummer, I was intimidated by the whole prospect of playing keyboards. And on top of that, also having to program every little thing in order to get it to do what I wanted it to do and still have it be inferior to actual organic, analog, human-performed instruments. So I just felt that that was not a step that I was willing to take. So, in this reboot of my career, I now have that ability to make that decision, to go down that road. And especially since technology has accomplished so much in that 30 years, a guy like me now actually has a fighting chance of coming up with something in the electronic realm, even though he has no real musical training. I mean, I've never had a lesson in anything in my life. And I'm thinking back just to make sure that that's completely accurate. And no, I actually took one vocal lesson. And that was after a record label basically said, we love you, but you're going to need some vocal lessons. I said, okay, cool. So this is an interesting story. And I think if you stick with me long enough, you're going to realize that tangents and detours are a normal part of this podcast and what make it, I don't know, like a train wreck you can't turn away from, I guess. Anyway, the record company didn't recommend anyone to me. I figured that they would. I was like, do you know anybody? They're like, no, I know. Just look in the back of the Music Connection magazine. And I just winced at that because I just loathed everything about Music Connection magazine because it's a weird kind of music magazine. And I don't really want to go into it at that point. So anyway, I looked in the back of the magazine and I found a chick. And you're also going to see that I call people dudes and chicks. That's just the way I am. My podcast, my rules. And I mean, it's not like I'm, if the worst thing I call somebody is a chick, it's a pretty good day. So anyway, this chick is posing in her ad, showing off her ass, tight jeans. I'm like, that's my teacher right there. So I go there, and she's older, maybe pushing 40, maybe early 40s. I'm like late 20s. And first thing I notice is she's not wearing a bra underneath her sweater, which is fine for me. Because I came ready. I mean, I'm not wearing any underwear. I've got these workout shorts on. And while I'm doing this vocal exercise, I literally pop a boner that you can see plain as day. And I think at some point I begin kind of like placing my hands, and she is, I don't know how to put it, but let's say this. At the end of the session, when I go to leave, and here's the thing, I had made I think my girlfriend had called me during the session, and I literally told my girlfriend, you're just going to have to wait. Session's going a little long. And anyway, so nothing happened, but there were sparks flying, obviously. I mean, I was completely ridiculous in my appearance. Yet, she had that kind of demeanor that she found that attractive, I guess. And, when I left, she gave me a big hug, patted me on the rump, sent me on my way. And we had a couple more lessons after that, but nothing ever happened, simply because I was with someone who I loved, but I was always, flirting with other women and pushing it right up to the edge of, one more step, and this is definitely cheating. But I never got to that point. And I don't know if that, that doesn't buy me any tickets in heaven, of course, but sadly, she thinks that, I cheated on her a bunch of times, but I didn't. I was just addicted to the chase, and that's who I am, man. I mean, I'm a hunter. I'm not a killer. I mean, could never be a hunter to the extent of actually killing a bear or a fish or a deer or anything like that. I would have been the first vegetarian had I grown up in, say, the 1800s. And, most of the people in town still would have wanted to beat me up for being different. There's a guy who doesn't eat meat, faggot. I don't know what being a faggot has to do with not eating meat, but, that's their logic. So anyway, where was I? Man, we are off the topic. Let's get this vehicle back on the road here. So anyway, 1986, Crossroads. I could have gone into the house scene, which would have been direct. Ridiculous. I mean, I'm a white dude. I didn't see any white dudes DJing back then. I think that was probably another thing that made me think it was kind of like there was no place for me there. So anyway, here we are now, 2016. And basically what I'm trying to do now is blend everything that I like. You've got the house aspect. You've got the new wave aspect. You've got the dance music aspect. Not the EDM. I mean, I'm not going to play with EDM. And that's the whole thing that makes my approach different, is that I'm bringing kind of a rock mentality to a genre that doesn't have a rock mentality. But it needs a rock mentality. You can't get rid of rock entirely. It's not going anywhere. I mean, I'd like to see the instrumentation be kind of updated because, I don't know, some of it looks kind of ridiculous. Once I kind of opened my mind up to, the latest gear, more of the keyboard-centric or sampler type layout, I began to look at the traditional band and just like, guys, you guys look so ridiculous. And plus, there's so much that you can't control with a guitar. I mean, playing rock guitar, you're letting kind of a lot of notes and frequencies escape unharnessed. But the thing that I've learned with keyboards and with soft synths and DAWs is that you can control every aspect so that you can get, say, a delay to match up perfectly with your phrasing vocally without it being, locked to a grid, more dependent on the kick and snare than on your voice. This way you can literally customize it so that, whatever line you're saying, whatever phrasing it's got, you can cater your delay or any other effect to perfectly suit it, to perfectly end when you want it to. And that's something that you just don't have with guitar, drums, and it's just a lot of variables that can't be controlled. That's not to say that I want to control everything, but when you have stuff that you can control, it just gives your music more order, and it makes a more dramatic effect if it's got some harness to it. It's like nuclear energy. You have to harness it. You can't just... That's just dangerous. So that's where I am. I'm basically trying to make the most of the technology without selling my soul to it, and just making bullshit that's been done to